Welcome back to the Future of Fintech 2020. Before we start our next session, I just want to remind everyone that every session you see here will be available on demand on this platform. So if you miss a talk that you really wanted to catch, no worries, you'll definitely be able to see it later. And now, without further ado, please welcome Louis Summe, CEO and co-founder of LiveVox, and welcome back Forbes contributor Ron Shevlin.
Thank you, and welcome today to the next session. I'm Ron Shevlin, senior contributor at Forbes. I write the FinTech Snark Tank blog there. And today I'm joined by Louis Summe, the CEO of LiveVox. Hi, Louis, how you doing?
Hey, Ron, how are you?
Doing great, thanks, and thanks for joining us today. Louis, for those who might not be aware of LiveVox, can you tell us a little bit about what your firm does?
Yeah, LiveVox provides cloud contact center software, and we have a pretty strong predisposition towards financial services. A lot of our customers are in that segment, and where LiveVox has really been focused is on putting together a broader contact center platform that includes not only the omni-channel capabilities, but also CRM and analytics capabilities all in one solution. Because we believe that by giving our customers an easier path to implementation, that really positions them to get more quickly to sort of the business optimization part.
So Louis, you were an early advocate for cloud-based tools. What was your original vision for LiveVox? How has that evolved? What have you seen change over the years?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, cloud has always meant to us just a way of using technology or in an easier form, again, so that you can spend more time focused on your business objectives. And that's always been kind of how we've approached it and why we've embraced cloud. I think our original business plan is one of the reasons that we really always had that perspective. Our first application that we developed back in 2001 was actually an AI application, a speech recognition AI application for healthcare for prescription renewals. And that product, I think that didn't really go as well as we had hoped it to, wanted it to. And the reason that it stumbled was that the technology was so hard to work with, and the underlying workflows were so siloed and so kind of just broken off in their own little areas, that it was hard to make that application work. And so after that experience, we really pivoted our energy to, instead of making that AI application work, to really making that contact center workflow easier and more seamless. And it's kind of funny because now, of course, that we've done that, a big application for our more seamless integrated workflow is actually to put AI on top of it. And so, you know, our world has kind of come full circle here.
Yeah, you know, a lot of financial institutions have been slow to move to the cloud. I think the past year has helped accelerate that a bit. And I know that we've got a lot of folks from fintech startups in the audience today as well, and many of them are looking to either partner or sell to financial institutions. Are you still seeing resistance to the cloud? And if not, what kind of strategies are you seeing them deploy? And how do you get them to be more friendly towards the solutions you're bringing to the table?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and only time will tell, but I think that what we've seen here in 2000, especially with the impact of the coronavirus and a lot of organizations moving their agents into work at home environments, I think we've really seen kind of a tipping point in how people think about cloud versus premise. Historically, people really looked at premise as a more secure, more reliable, more compliant platform. And over time, as cloud has matured, that's certainly become less true. And when people were asked, hey, let's move your contact center agents in response to this pandemic, let's move them out of center where they're at a higher risk of infection into, a work at home configuration where it's safer for your employees. I think at that point, a number of people started to look at the premise-based solutions really as not quite such an advantage anymore, and maybe really more of a liability. And so I think that, again, time will only tell, but I suspect at this point that the market has really sort of pivoted towards the cloud. Now again, with that said, that's really only possible for financial services if the cloud provider is strongly anchored in compliance and security and in reliability. Because inside of financial services, those are important dimensions really to any enterprise. But inside of financial services, they're of course of particular importance.
Any preferences for any of one major cloud vendor over another?
Well, I mean, I like the LiveVox solution pretty well. No,
Yeah.
but in terms of the public cloud providers, I think Amazon does a pretty strong job, and we have a lot of our software in Amazon data centers.
Yeah. So a big part of what LiveVox does, of course, is improve the customer experience. And I've got to be honest with you, Louis, I've been hearing about the customer experience for 20 years. And even though I'm supposed to be an expert in the space, it gets me confused. It's singular customer experience. And I think, aren't there a lot of different experiences that cut across a lot of different channels, that cut across a lot of different products and services? What's really happening from a customer experience perspective? What are the leaders doing in the space? How are you helping enable them do that? And where are things going with that?
Yeah. Yeah, so you're right. Customer experience is a vague term, and it applies to a lot of different things in a lot of different scenarios. But there are definitely some things that it has in common. And the first thing that applies to really all the customer experiences is that they end up being more or less a journey of how a customer interacts with an enterprise across multiple channels, whether that be internet, SMS, chat, voice, or in person, as well as multiple departments, whether that be in some sort of new business role, some sort of underwriting department or a loan servicing department. And so as a customer goes through different channels and interacts with different departments, their experience can be sometimes, I would say, awkward, right? Because when a customer is interacting across different channels and different departments, they really expect those to have a kind of a common element to them, and they expect each of those different venues to know who they are and to adjust who they are and to provide a consistent experience. And given that most departments and many channels are on separated platforms, getting to a seamless customer journey is difficult. And so that's been a struggle. It's a struggle in financial services, but it's also a struggle in many industries. And that's why it's been such a topic over the years. But there is a lot of technology involved in the contact center, and pulling it together into a more seamless package that's what we are all about. And that's work, right? And other people are working on that as well, but that's really the goal. And I think one thing that we think about first and foremost when we target helping people get to a more seamless journey is really empowering their agents, making sure that their agents have a stronger platform that has better customer information embedded in it, so that agent is really empowered to deliver a better customer experience. I think that's something that is sometimes forgotten, that really, as you strive to get a better journey and a more seamless experience, you got to make sure that you're really empowering that agent to be a strong partner in that, and giving them the tools to personalize the experience and also to resolve problems quickly and give the customers personalization and the fast response that they want.
Yeah, you mentioned, Louis, the multiple platforms that a lot of financial institutions have. I think a big reason for that is really driven by the organizational structure. There's just so many, stovepiped and siloed channels and product organizations. From your perspective, having worked with a lot of financial services firms, what are the smart ones and the successful ones doing to help overcome barriers like organizational silos?
Yeah. And okay, so let me start off by saying that what we do not do is we do not go in and recommend to organizations that they shut down existing data silos. We do not do that. Instead, our approach really is to come in and say, look, if you want to give a more seamless experience to the customers and empower your agents with a more seamless experience, you should create a layer on top, a data layer and a workflow layer on top of your existing silos. And again, that's where we are. That's where we are focused and what we are all about. So when we think about our R&D, a big part of what we develop is making sure that we can easily take data from multiple existing legacy systems and securely, with a high degree of compliance, insert them into our layer that sits on top that really gives the customer and the agent that more seamless experience without disrupting the existing underlying systems and underlying data flows that the corporation, that the financial services entity is dependent on.
Mm-hmm. How long does that take? And how long should a financial institution expect it to take to deploy these new workflows?
Yeah, well, I don't usually recommend a kind of an overly aggressive approach. It's probably something that from a deployment perspective makes sense. It does. It makes sense really to think department by department, really start in one area and then move into another area. And so when you think in that way, I think you can probably set up a department with a get started workflow in 60 to 90 days from a let's get started kind of moment, post contract, post implementation plan. So it can go pretty quickly to get that first department and that first workflow up. With that said, once it's up, of course, you're going to want to iterate on it, and you're going to want to see how it works and how you might apply it to other departments.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the emerging technologies that are coming down the pike that are going to impact and transform the contact center and the customer experience. From a foundational perspective, what should financial services firms and even fintech firms as well be thinking about in terms of deploying artificial intelligence technologies?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a lot of potential in artificial intelligence, and we're excited about it, and we've been involved in it for many, many years. But I think that what a big part of what those tools do, they rely heavily on statistical processing and data-driven algorithms. And so if you really just peel that back a little bit and think about it, they really are only as good. It doesn't really matter what they are. They're really only as good as the data set that they have. And there's really two data sets that are most important to inform the algorithms. The first data set is a customer profile data set. And of course, that involves the customer journey, but it also involves, a segmentation or, product potential and classifications of the customer. But then on top of that, there's the service history that the customer has with the enterprise. So what did they most recently engage on? Are they following up on something? Where does that request or where does that engagement exist inside of the organization? And oftentimes that information is held inside of a ticketing system. which is tracking how the customer is being serviced, how the service delivery model is operating across multiple departments and across multiple functions. And then there's the knowledge database, which is sort of a expert database that helps the agents make good choices in executing that service delivery. And so I think the customer profile, the service delivery data sets around ticketing and around knowledge database, those are important elements for any algorithmically driven system, right? Because it's those variables, those data variables, that determine how the algorithm is going to operate. And so that's a big part of successfully is making sure that whether you're talking about a virtual agent for the voice side, or whether you're talking about a chatbot for chat or for SMS, that those applications have a rich set of customer and service delivery data sets available to them, because that will in some ways define what they're capable of doing. But on top of it, it also defines your ability to tune them. And ultimately, these algorithms have to be tuned and they have to be optimized. Nobody should deploy AI and just assume that it works out of the box, because even when you look at the amount of time and effort to integrate and implement, which is an area that we really focus on making that easier, you still, even setting aside that part of the exercise, you still should anticipate a fair amount of time of tuning and making sure that the virtual assistant or the chatbot is executing in a way that delivers not only efficiency but a superior customer experience. And that doesn't just happen out of the box.
Yeah. Louis, a bank like Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase has, I don't know, somewhere between 25 and 50 million customers with probably 1 billion transactions a year. A mid-sized financial institution, even at the $1 billion asset level, may only have, I don't know, 150,000 or 350,000 customers and members. Do they have enough data to really drive a good AI system?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you get pretty far. I mean, you get something like if you've ever interacted with, well, let me back up for a second. When you talk about AI, from a financial services perspective, there is I'll give you an example. There's say, for example, the use of AI for underwriting and identifying data sets that help underwriters make better decisions. When I talk about AI, I'm really focused more on how do you use AI for the customer experience. So I'm not addressing all of the AI use cases with my comments. It's mostly centered around what we do, which is the contact center. Yeah. And so when you look at the contact center, and again, and the most common form, I mean, there's 3 real forms of AI. There's sort of the virtual agent, which is more interacting over the phone. There's a chatbot, which is more interacting over chat. And then there's a form more like an agent assist. It's almost like an AI augmentation where there's advice being provided to the agent on either talk-offs or on workflow decisions. So you got 3 categories of AI right there. But yes, you can absolutely build intelligence off of 150,000 accounts. Absolutely. Because I mean, even 100 or 200 or 300 experiences, they start to give you a data set. And once you have a data set, you can find patterns. And of course, some of the patterns don't require AI. They're more, they're a little more obvious. So it isn't that the that the AI tool has found some sort of long tail statistical pattern. I mean, there's a lot of generalized patterns that are sort of low-hanging fruit, pretty relatively simple. And in that instance, the AI isn't so much the tool to find the pattern, but it's more the tool actually to execute the pattern.
Yep. So let's look to the future a little bit. Louis, there are folks out there who believe that AI will not just transform the contact center, but actually replace human agents completely. What's your view of the future of customer engagement and customer service in the contact center?
Well, I suppose that AI may, look, AI will replace agents in some scenarios, but there will be many scenarios where it doesn't. And so I think AI is will replace some tasks, and frankly, it'll probably first and foremost replace the tasks that are more rote and more repetitive. And then as it does that, I think the agents will be asked to operate at a higher level of skill. And so then AI's role will be, again, more in sort of an augmentation role at helping the agents deliver on on their ability to solve more complex tasks.
I can see a scenario though where we kind of get into a bit of a problem in that the AI delivered service isn't actually part of the contact center. It's part of the channel execution, channel delivery, channel transactions, wherever that's happening. We run into a problem where if there isn't good integration of the data across the channels, that the contact center of the future is actually hampered by developments.
Oh, look, there is zero doubt that if you put too much faith in technology, it will let you down. Right. I mean, you absolutely have to embrace technology, and you absolutely have to invest in it. But you also have to, monitor it and test it and observe it. And look, we're all human beings, and we want interaction, and we want we want a human touch. And so I think that people like AI and they like self-service when it delivers quickly and easily for relatively simple tasks. But when it doesn't deliver, and when the task is maybe a little bit more complex or they feel a little bit more uncertain, at that time they want a clear and easy way to escalate to a human. And when they get to the human, that human, they want them to be knowledgeable of them. They want to personalize that experience. And they want that human to respond competently and quickly to their needs. And so I think it's the blending of all of those things that really should be the goal. Yeah. And if you just look at one part of that and say, hey, I'm just all AI all the time, I think that I think people will find your customer experience to be not quite as good as somebody that really blends AI with the human element more elegantly.
Great. So we just got a couple minutes left, Louis, and I want to transition to something that we do with a lot of sessions here at the event and ask our speakers and our experts about overestimated or underestimated. I'm going to run a few things by and I want to get your gut sense if you feel they're overestimated or underestimated. You ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Open banking.
I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. I should.
Nope, that's okay. It's one of those buzzwords and just want to see reaction. Forget that one. Next one. Bank branches. Overestimated or underestimated?
I think bank branches are shrinking, and I suspect that will continue.
Amazon as a bank.
Overestimated.
Why is that?
I mean, I think people are cautious when it comes to banks, and banks have brand, and they have brand around security, and they have brand around reliability, and Amazon has brand around getting the packages to you quickly and easily, and that's great. That's great brand, but that's not quite exactly the same brand as reliability and security and trust. Just not exactly the same. So
I actually agree with you on that, but I'd add the point that I think Amazon is better positioned to be a partner to banks than a competitor to banks, and actually help them more than hurt them. So I'm with you on that one. And with that, I think we are pretty much running out of time. So Louis Summe, CEO of LiveVox, thanks a lot for being with us today on this one-on-one fireside chat.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.